Hey, good morning. We made it to day 10 of Daily Affirmations with Big Joe. It's gone by quick. I'm surprised already there's 10 videos. Uh, Yesterday went good. I went out and golfed with my friend Harry in Reedsport, and he's an elderly gentleman. I've known him for over 15 years. He's my Vietnam veteran friend. And just have learned a lot from Harry over the years. And I just enjoy having a vast array of different individuals in my life from different walks of life to learn from and to share experiences with. And uh, I just really cherish our relationship. And so I like to take the time to go and see him and talk to him and pick his brain and just learn as much as I can while he's around because life is short. And just try to take advantage of what little time we have so we can try to just enjoy each other's presence. Aside from that, he didn't finish the match because we got started around 1 and we ended up playing, had this other guy that he knows from around there play with us for the first 9. And then we finished going around about maybe 15 holes. And then Harry was getting hungry and kind of tired and decided to just go home and eat and kick it. And I stayed till like about 7 and then drove home and went to bed kind of early. And then I woke up this morning to start my day and got a message from work telling me that we didn't have any money bags. So I was like, oh, crap, I better get down there and get him some money. So I rushed down there, which I had my cans to unload from my truck anyways. And so I just got my day started in a different fashion than I planned. But went down there, took care of that stuff, came home. I turned my sauna on before I left, so it'd be ready when I came back. So that way I could start my routine in the morning. And I just went out of order, but I ended up doing my books, the 2 days of books that I picked up from work, and some of the stuff from my list I knocked out this morning before sauna and the video and stuff. But I'm cool with it. I like getting stuff done, and the more I can get done, the better. I told Andrew that I'd hit him up today to go do some brush hogging at his grandma's house. And so my plan is to hit him up here after the video in just a minute and um, go do that work. And then I was going to come back, get cleaned up, maybe have some lunch, and then go to work and start making all the coffee I'm going to need to fill the cans tomorrow so I can get the stores all restocked because we've been out for a couple weeks and I'm sure that nobody has any coffee. I'm almost guaranteed. So I need to get on that. And so that's on the list. I got my food handler's card renewed this morning. That's been something I forgot about the last couple of weeks. And then it just dawned on me when I was at work this morning when I looked up at the board. I was like, oh crap, I need to do my food handler's card too. So I just came home and knocked that out real quick. In my reading this morning, brought my book back again. Side note, they're fixing our sewer line today. So I seen them outside working on that, which is cool. And yesterday, the swim spa guy came and fixed our leaky swim spa. So I get to fill that up today. So that's pretty cool. So those things got taken care of. This chapter in 12 Rules for Life is Rule 7. It's called Pursue What is Meaningful, Not What is Expedient. And I was looking for just like a small section, more or less, to try to read to you guys, but it's actually kind of difficult because there's so much here packed in these pages that it's really hard to summarize. And I don't I don't know how much you really enjoy sitting here listening to me read, but I was going to go ahead and read this section of the chapter because I'm not finished with the chapter. It's kind of a longer one. But this subsection of the chapter is called The Delay of Gratification. And I really enjoyed it, so I figured I would share it with you guys. It starts out, When engaging in sacrifice, our forefathers began to act out what would be considered a proposition. If it were stated in words that something better might be attained in the future by giving up something of value in the present. Recall, if you will, that the necessity for work is one of the curses placed by God upon Adam and his descendants in consequence of original sin. Adam's waking to the fundamental constraints of his being, his vulnerability, his eventual death, his equivalent to his discovery of the future. The future, that's where you go to die, hopefully not too soon. Your demise be staved off through work, though the sacrifice of the now to gain benefit later. It is for this reason, among others, no doubt, that the concept of sacrifice is introduced in the biblical chapter immediately following the drama of the fall. There is little difference between sacrifice and work. They are both uniquely human. Sometimes animals act as if they are working, but they are really only following the dictates of their nature. Beavers build dams. They do so because they are beavers, and beavers build dams. They don't think, but yeah, I'd rather be on a beach in Mexico with my girlfriend while they're doing it. Prosaically, such sacrifice work is delay of gratification. But that's a very mundane phrase to describe something of such profound significance. The discovery that gratification could be delayed was simultaneously the discovery of time, and with it, causality, at least the causal force of voluntary human action. Long ago, in the midst of time, we began to realize that reality was structured as if it could be bargained with. We learned that behaving properly now, in the present, regulating our impulses, considering the plights of others, could bring rewards in the future, in a time and place that did not yet exist. We began to inhibit, control, and organize our immediate impulses so that we could stop interfering with other people and our future selves. Doing so was indistinguishable from organizing society. The discovery of the causal relationship between our efforts today and the quality of tomorrow motivated the social contract, the organization that enables today's work to be stored reliably, most in the form of promises from others. Understanding is often acted out before it can be articulated, just as a child acts out what it means to be mother or father before being able to give a spoken account of what those roles mean. The act of making a ritual sacrifice to God was an early and sophisticated enactment of the idea of the usefulness of delay. There is a long conceptual journey between merely feasting hungrily and learning to set aside some extra meat smoked by the fire for the end of the day or for someone who isn't present. It takes a long time to learn to keep anything later for yourself or to share it with someone else. And those are very much the same thing as, in the former case, you are sharing with your future self. It is much easier and far more likely to selfishly and immediately wolf down everything in sight. There are similarly long journeys between every leap in sophistication with regard to delay and its conceptualization. Short-term sharing, storing away for the future, representation of that storage in the form of records, and later in the form of currency, and ultimately the saving of money in a bank or other social institution. Some conceptualizations had to serve as intermediaries, or the full range of our practices and ideas surrounding sacrifice and work and their representation could have never emerged. Our ancestors acted out a drama, a fiction. They personified the force that governs fate as a spirit that can be bargained with, traded with, as if it were another human being. And the amazing thing is that it worked. This was in part because the future is largely composed of other human beings, often precisely those who have watched and evaluated and appraised the tiniest details of your past behavior. It's not very far from that to God, sitting above on high, tracking your every move and writing it down for further reference in a big book. Here's a productive symbolic idea. The future is a judgmental father. That's a good start. But two additional archetypical foundational questions arose. Because of the discovery of sacrifice of work, both have to do with the ultimate extension of the logic of work, which is sacrifice now to gain later. First question. What must be sacrificed? Small sacrifices may be sufficient to solve small singular problems, but it is possible that larger, more comprehensive sacrifices might solve an array of large and complex problems all at the same time. That's harder, but it might be better. Adapting to the necessary discipline of medical school will, for example, fatally interfere with the licentious lifestyle of a hardcore undergraduate party animal. Giving that up is a sacrifice, but a physician can, to paraphrase George W., really put food on his family. That's a that's a lot of trouble dispensed with over a very long period of time. So sacrifices are necessary to improve the future, and large sacrifices can be better. Second question, set of related questions, really. We've already established the basic principle. Sacrifice will improve the future. But a principle, once established, has to be fleshed out. Its full extension or significance has to be understood. What is implied by the idea that sacrifice will improve the future is the most extreme and final of cases. What is implied by the idea that sacrifice will improve the future in the most extreme and final of cases? Where does that basic principle find its limits? We must ask to begin. What would be the largest, most effective, most pleasing of all possible sacrifices? And then how good might the best possible future be if the most effective sacrifice could be made? A biblical story of Cain and Abel, Adam and Eve's sons, immediately follows the story of the expulsion from paradise. As mentioned previously, Cain and Abel are really the first humans, since their parents were made directly by God and not born in the standard manner. Cain and Abel live in history, not in Eden. They must work. They must make sacrifices to please God, and they do so with altar and proper ritual. But things get complicated. Abel's offerings please God, but Cain's do not. Abel's is rewarded many times over, but Cain's is not. It's not precisely clear why, although the text strongly hints that Cain's heart is just not in it. Maybe the quality of what Cain put forward was low. Maybe his spirit was begrudging, or maybe God was vexed for some secret reason of his own. And all of this is realistic, including the text's vagueness of explanation. Not all sacrifices are of equal quality. Furthermore, it often appears that sacrifices of apparently high quality are not rewarded with a better future. It is not clear why. Why isn't God happy? What would have to change to make him so? Those are difficult questions, and everyone asks them all the time, even if they don't notice. Asking such questions is indistinguishable from thinking. The realization that pleasure could be usefully forestalled dawned on us with great difficulty. It runs absolutely contrary to our ancient fundamental animal instincts, which demand immediate satisfaction, particularly under conditions of deprivation which are both inevitable and commonplace. And to complicate this matter, such delay only becomes useful when civilization has stabilized itself enough to guarantee the existence of the delayed reward in the future. If everything you saved will be destroyed or worse, stolen, there is no point in saving. It is for this reason that a wolf will down 20 pounds of raw meat in a single meal. He isn't thinking, man, I hate it when I binge. I should save some of this for next week. So how is it that those two impossible and necessary simultaneous accomplishments, delay in the stabilization of society into the future, could possibly have manifested themselves? Here is a development progression from animal to human. It's wrong, no doubt, in its details, but it's sufficiently correct for our purposes. In theme, first, there is excess food. Large carcasses, mammoths, or other massive herbivores might provide that. We ate a lot of mammoths, maybe all of them. After a kill with a large animal, there is some left for later. That's accidental at first, but eventually the utility for later starts to be appreciated. Some provisional notion of sacrifice develops at the same time. If I leave some, even if I want it now, I won't have to be hungry later. That provisional notion develops to the next level. If I leave some for later, I won't have to go hungry, and neither will those I care for. And then to the next, I can't possibly eat all of this mammoth, but I can't store the rest for too long either. Maybe I should feed some of the other people. Maybe they'll remember and feed me some of their mammoth when they have some and I have none. Then I'll get some mammoth now and some mammoth later. That's a good deal. And maybe those I'm sharing with will come to trust me more generally. Maybe then we could trade forever. In such a manner, mammoths becomes future mammoth, and future mammoth becomes personal reputation. That's the emergence of the social contract. To share does not mean to give away something you value and to get nothing back. That is instead only what every child who refuses to share fears it means. To share means properly to indicate the process of trade. A child who can't share, who can't trade, can't have any friends, because having friends is a form of trade. Benjamin Franklin once suggested that a newcomer to a neighborhood asks a new neighbor to do him or her a favor, citing an old maxim: he that once done you a kindness will be more ready to do you another than he whom you yourself have obliged. In Franklin's opinion, asking someone for something, not too extreme obviously, was the most useful and immediate invitation to social interaction. Such asking on the part of the newcomer provided the neighbor with the opportunity to show him or herself a good person at first encounter. It also meant that the latter could now ask the former for a favor in return because of the debt incurred, increasing their mutual familiarity and trust. In that manner, both parties could overcome their natural hesitancy and mutual fear of the stranger. It is better to have something than nothing. It's better yet to share generously than the something you have. It's better, even better than that, however, to become widely known for generous sharing. That's something that lasts. That's something that's reliable. And at this point of abstraction, we can observe how the groundwork for the conceptions reliable, honest, and generous have been laid. The basis for an articulated morality has been put in place. The productive, truthful sharer is the prototype for the good citizen and the good man. We can see in this manner how from the simple notion that leftovers are a good idea, the highest moral principle might emerge. It's as if something like the following happened as humanity developed. First were the endless tens of hundreds of thousands of years prior to the emergence of written history and drama. During this time, the twin practices of delay and exchange began to emerge slowly and painfully. Then they became represented in metaphorical abstraction. As rituals and tales of sacrifice told in a manner such as this, it's as if there is a powerful figure in the sky who sees all and is judging as if there is sorry. It's as if there is a powerful figure in the sky who sees all and is judging you. Giving up something you value seems to make him happy, and if you want to make him happy, because all hell breaks loose if you don't. So practice sacrificing and sharing until you become expert at it, and things will go well for you. No one said any of this, at least not so plainly and directly, but it was implicit in the practice and then in their stories. Action came first, as it had to, as the animals we once were could act but could not think. Implicit, unrecognized value came first, as the actions and that proceeded through embodied value, but did not make that value explicit. People watched their successful succeed and the unsuccessful fail for thousands and thousands of years. We thought it over and drew a conclusion. The successful among us delay gratification. The successful among us bargain with the future. A great idea begins to emerge, taking ever more clearly articulated form and ever more clearly articulated stories. What's the difference between the successful and the unsuccessful? The successful sacrifice. Things get better as the successful practice their sacrifices. The questions become increasingly precise and simultaneously broader. What is the greatest possible sacrifice for the greatest possible good? And the answers become increasingly deeper and profound. The God of Western tradition, like so many gods, requires sacrifice. We have already examined why, but sometimes he goes even further. He demands not only sacrifice, but the sacrifice of precisely what is loved best. This is the most starkly portrayed and most confusingly evident in the story of Abraham and Isaac. Abraham, beloved of God, long wanted a son, and God promised him exactly that. After many delays and under the apparently impossible conditions of old age and a long barren wife, but not so long afterward, when the miraculously born Isaac is still a child, God turns around and is unreasonably in apparently barbaric fashion demands that his faithful servant offer his son as a sacrifice. The story ends happily. God sends an angel to stay Abraham's obedient hand and accepts a ram in Isaac's steed. That's a good thing, but it doesn't really address the issue at hand. Why is God going further necessary? Why is God's going further necessary? Why does life impose such demands? We'll start our analysis with a truism, stark, self-evident, and understated. Sometimes things do not go well. That seems to have much to do with the terrible nature of the world, with its plagues and famines and tyrannies and betrayals. But here's the rub. Sometimes when things are not going well, it's not the world that's the cause, The cause is instead that which is currently most valued subjectively and personally. Why? Because the world is revealed to an indeterminate degree through the template of your values. Much more of this in Rule 10. If the world you are seeing is not the world you want, therefore, it's time to examine your values. It's time to rid yourself of your current presuppositions. It's time to let go. It might even be time to sacrifice what you love best so that you can become who you might become instead of staying who you are. There's an old and possibly apocryphal story about how to catch a monkey that illustrates this set of ideals very well. First, you must find a large, narrow-necked jar just barely wide enough in diameter at the top for the monkey to put its hand inside. Then you must fill the jar part way with rocks so it's too heavy for the monkey to carry. Then you must scatter some treats attractive to monkeys near the jar to attract one and put some inside the jar. A monkey will come along, reaching its hand into the narrow opening and grab while the grabbing's good. But now he won't be able to extract his fist, now full of treats, from the too narrow opening of the jar. He won't be able to extract his fist, now full of treats, from the too narrow opening of the jar, not without unclenching his hand, not without relinquishing what he already has. And that's just what he won't do. The monkey catcher can just walk over to the jar and pick up the monkey. The animal will not sacrifice the part to preserve the whole. Something valuable given up ensures future prosperity. Something valuable sacrificed pleases the Lord. What is most valuable and best sacrificed, or what is at least emblematic of that? A choice cut of meat, the best animal in the flock, a most valued possession. What above even that? Something intensely personal and painful to give up? That symbolizes perhaps in God's instance on circumcision as part of the Abraham's sacrificial routine, where the part is offered symbolically to redeem the whole. What's beyond that? What pertains more closely to the whole person rather than the part? What constitutes the ultimate sacrifice for the gain of the ultimate prize? It's a close race between child and self. The sacrifice of the mother offering her child to the world is exemplified profoundly by Michelangelo's great sculpture, the Pieta, illustrated at the beginning of this chapter. Michelangelo crafted Mary contemplating her son crucified and ruined. It's her fault. It was through her that he entered the world and its great drama of being. Is it right to bring a baby into this terrible world? Every woman asks herself that question. Some say no, and they have their reasons. Mary answers yes, voluntarily, knowing full well what's to come, as do all mothers if they allow themselves to see. It's an act of supreme courage when undertaken voluntarily. In turn, Mary's son Christ offers himself to God and the world, to betrayal, torture, and death, to the very point of despair on the cross, where he cries out those terrible words, my God, why hast thou forsaken me?" That is the archetypical story of the man who gives his all for the sake of the better, who offers up his life for the advancement of being, who follows God's will to become manifest fully within his confines of a single mortal life. That is the model of the honorable man. In Christ's case, however, as he sacrifices himself, God his Father is simultaneously sacrificing his Son. It is for this reason that the Christian sacrificial drama of Son and self are archetypical. It is a story at the limit where nothing more extreme, nothing greater can be imagined. That's the very definition of archetypical. That's the core of what constitutes religious. Pain and suffering defines the world. Of that, there can be no doubt. Sacrifice can hold pain and suffering in abeyance to a greater or lesser degree. The greater sacrifices can do that more effectively than lesser. Of that, there can be no doubt. Everyone holds this knowledge in their soul. Thus, the person who wishes to alleviate suffering, who wishes to rectify the flaws in being, who wants to bring out the best of all possible futures, who wants to create heaven on earth, will make the greatest of sacrifices of self and child, of everything that is loved, to live a life aimed at the good. He will forego expediency. He will pursue the path of ultimate meaning, and he will, in that manner, bring salvation to the ever desperate world. But is such a thing even possible? Is this simply not asking too much of the individual? It is all well and good for Christ, it might be objected, but he was the veritable Son of God. But we do have other examples, some such less mythologized and archetypical. Consider For example, the case of Socrates, the ancient Greek philosopher. After a lifetime of seeking the truth and educating his countrymen, Socrates faced a trial for crimes against the city-state of Athens, his hometown. His accusers provided him with plenty of opportunity to simply leave and avoid the trouble, but the great sage had already considered and rejected the course of action. His companion Hermogenes offered him at the time discussing any and every subject other than his trial, and asked him why he appeared so unconcerned. Socrates first answered that he had been preparing his whole life to defend himself, but then said something more mysterious and significant. When he attempted specifically to consider strategies that would produce acquittal by fair means or foul, or even when merely considering his potential action at the trial, he found himself interrupted by his divine sign, his internal spirit voice of Daemon. Socrates discussed that this voice at the trial itself. He said that one of the factors distinguishing him from other men. He said that one of the factors distinguishing him from other men was his absolute willingness to listen to its warnings, to stop speaking and cease acting when it objected. The gods themselves had deemed him wise above other men, not least for this reason, according to the Delphic oracle herself, held to be a reliable judge of such things. Because his ever-reliable internal voice objected to fleeing or even to defending himself, Socrates radically altered his view of the significance of his trial. He began to consider that it might be a blessing rather than a curse. He told Hermogenes of his realization that the spirit to whom he had always listened might be offering him a way out of life in a manner easiest but also the least irksome to one's friends, with sound body and spirit capable of showing kindliness and absent the throes of illness and vexations of extreme old age. Socrates' decision to accept his fate allowed him to put away mortal terror in the face of death itself. Prior to and during the trial, after the sentence was handed down, and even later during his execution, he saw that his life had been so rich and full that he could let it go gracefully. He was given the opportunity to put his affairs in order. He saw that he could escape the terrible slow degeneration of the advancing years. He came to understand that all was happening to him as a gift from the gods. He was not therefore required to defend himself against his accusers, at least not with the aim of pronouncing his innocence and escaping his fate. Instead, he turned the tables, addressing his judges in a manner that makes the reader understand precisely why the town council wanted this man dead. Then he took the poison like a man. Socrates rejected expediency and the necessity for manipulation that accompanied it. He chose instead, under the direst of conditions, to maintain his pursuit of the meaningful and the true. 2,500 years later, we remember his decisions and take comfort from it. What can we learn from this? If you cease to utter falsehoods and live nobly, even when facing the ultimate threats, if you abide truthfully and courageously by the highest of ideals, you will be provided with more security and strength than will be offered by any short-sighted concentration on your own safety. If you live properly, fully, you can discover meaning so profound that it protects you even from the fear of death. Could all that possibly be true? And that's the end of that subsection. Death, toil, and evil is next. But so yeah, that is quite a lot to take in. But I think like what I really enjoyed about it was it touches a lot on the core of history and action and being and morality and just being an honorable, good person and sacrifice. And there's a reason for failing and sacrifice and suffering. And when you find yourself in a hardship of any kind, you know, it's valuable to figure out how to turn that into a blessing rather than a curse. Because usually, that's the first thing we think is, this is happening and it feels like a curse, you know, like, and to view it as a blessing is empowering. And it just takes a little effort to figure out how this can teach you rather than how it's hurting you. Something I take from it. And, you know, learning from history is important because history not learned is destined to repeat itself. So if we don't learn from these old stories and we don't learn from our surroundings or others in general, or reading, just we're going to be doomed. Like if we feel like our life isn't everything it could be or should be, you got to take some time to envision what your life would look like if it were better, so you can start making those steps towards finding the path to a better future. Because I'm pretty sure we could all agree that we would like to see the world more unified, likely, like to where we can not worry about our kids going to school and being harassed or, mishandled or taken, traded, like, or whatever. Like that shit's horrible. And it would be nice to be able to have some accountability from the bottom up and the top down, because it seems like accountability is something that's been lost from and on so many levels. And the individual level is a huge one too. Like a man of his word is everything. A man not of his word is worth nothing. And people far too often make excuses for their actions, and excuses are like assholes. Everyone's got one. So quit making excuses for your actions and start solving your problems, realizing that there's a solution to it. Fucking fix it. Like I get tired of making excuses. I get tired of hearing excuses, and I just pay attention to actions more nowadays. And I focus on my own actions. And that's why I'm doing this, because it's like, I can't get anybody else to do anything that I wouldn't be willing to do myself. And leading by example is the best way to show others that there is a way. If you just do what everybody says to do, it's a good way to get yourself in trouble too. Like pay attention to the way things are done and the way things are done correctly, because things done not well are not worth doing either. If you're going to do something, do it the best way possible and the most efficient way possible. And that makes it so you don't have to redo the work you did. And it also makes it so that people would call you back to do work again. So, yeah, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I hope you enjoyed the passage in the book, and thanks for listening. And I need to go get some work done so I can, get all my stuff checked off for the day. And sorry, my allowed reading isn't, super smooth, but I'm working on it. And I hope you have a great day. And, hopefully you're not going through too many hardships. And if you are, I pray that you get through them quickly, and just keep setting goals and knocking them out, because every bit that you can accomplish each day is going to help bring your spirits up. And if you just sit around and do nothing, uh, who knows how deep the pit goes. So I don't want to find out, and I'm sure you don't either. So just keep focusing on moving up in life, I feel like, is the best goal. Have an awesome day, and I'll talk to you